When you receive your X Series Totalflow, it should be ready to install and run, except for a few choices that will need to be made by the operator and the company policies. First, we need to come up and click your device ID, and the default ID is going to be Totalflow. When you click that, you should get a station setup tab, and the first thing that you see on the tab here is the station ID, and so we need to change the station ID to make it something unique for your station. So for this one, I'm just going to call it G4, and we'll capitalize that, G4 XFC. Also, the location 210.3393-004 is a placeholder that we put in there from the factory. It doesn't have any specific reason to be in there, so what we can do is take that out and put in your specific location. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here Bartlesville. The next thing is the time and date, and so you can see 04/17/2010 at 2100:09:36 seconds. If this isn't your correct time and date, then you can click on the date or time and go over to the right here, and you can change your month, day, year, and so forth with the buttons. Or I could change my set device with PCCU date and time from no. I can drop this down and change it to yes, and come down to the lower right hand corner and hit send, and it should go away and come back. What this is doing is, if you look down here in the tray, is taking the date and time from my PC, and it's going to push it out to my G4 Flow computer and set it with my computer. And so now we've set up a station ID, a location, we set the date and time, and we could go ahead and put in security code, and we'll get into more of that in the tutorial later. So what I'm going to do is jump down now to the flow measurement under the tree view, and so notice that my device ID changed from Totalflow to G4 XFC. And so down here under flow measurement now I have G4 XFC, and my location is Bartlesville. And so this is a graphical user interface, or graphical interface, and you can see we have flow rate, today's volume, yesterday's volume, and so forth, including differential and static and temperature. These are live values coming back from my G4, and so I can click the monitor button, and this would update with each few seconds. So what I can do is right click on this gray bar and go ahead and change it from 5 seconds if I want to increase the time. Now I've got it set for 1 second. So every second it's going to go out and poll the G4 and bring back new data to my PCCU 7 software. The next thing we got to do as the initial setup is click the setup button and go to General tab, and on the General tab we have Device App ID, and so notice I only have one tube turned on my XFC, so in a G4 it sets your device app ID of your tube, it matches it up with the station ID of your G4. Now this is with one tube, and we turn on a second measurement tube, say we connect an XMV or a microflow up to do multi-tube, then we would have different names for each one. So when you're running just the one measurement tube, it's going to be the same name as the station ID that you just put into your G4. Same way with the location. My tube description now is Bartlesville. My contract hour by default is midnight 00, so I could change this military time 01 through on up through 23 or so. I can change my volume calculation period. So based off of your company policies, you would put in your contract hour. You could also drop this down and put in your volume calculation period that is on your policy, and also put in your log period per your company. And then drop down here to your calculation type, and so here you can see I have an AGA 3-1985 or the AGA 3-1992, so that's what I have set for mine. And then I'm also running an AGA 8 gross detail, I'm sorry, 92. You could run an AGA 8 detail or even the NX19 analysis. And as far as the volume flow rate, I'm set up right now for MCF per day. You could do MCF per SCF per hour, MCF per hour, MMCF per day. So you'd make that selection, and then if you're SPDP averaging linear or square root, make those selections. And if we make a change here, let me go ahead and change this to 7 a.m. Now my send button is on grade. I'm going to go ahead and hit the send button, and then I always hit the reread just to make for sure that that's going to stay in there, and it accepted your change. So now I'm going to jump over to the Constants tab. Up here at the top we have our barometric pressure, and from the factory your G4 will be calibrated and set up and ready to run. And if your barometric pressure where you are when you install your G4 is close to 14.73, then your system will be set up and ready to go. Now you probably want to go ahead and calibrate it at your pressure and go ahead and get it on your historical record. So by default we set a barometric pressure to 14.73. I could go ahead and click this and change it, and so you would want to set this barometric pressure to match the location that you're at. And then we have our ZP DP0 cutoff we can put in there, and our static pressure location. Now this is upstream or downstream, so this would be important. We need to make sure where our static pressure tap location is. And then extremely important also to the calculation will be orifice diameter and pipe diameter. So you want to make sure you get those put in, and when you install your G4, make sure you get the right diameter for your orifice and pipe, and go ahead and type those in. Also your pressure base, temperature base, and some of these coefficients, you would want to make sure that you get those put in per the company policy and what's truly in the system, in the pipeline there. So now we've got some settings in here. We can go ahead and click the send button if you made any changes, hit the reread, make sure that they stay. And just to go down the list here, we do have a factors list. So by default we use calc CD, use Y, FPV, and you might be asking what all this is. So if you come down to the help button, the help is context sensitive and should come up and help you with each one of your choices here. So here's a list of the gas orifice factors, and if you turn them on or turn them off, what they'll do for you. Okay, so that was just clicking the help button. So you'd want to make your selections there. If you're using limits, we'll come back to this and talk about these later in the tutorial, but by default we set a really high limit and a really low limit, and until you turn on the limits, these are just kind of outside the realm and not being used. And then of course you have the commands tab also, and here you have a reset volume, reset log period, site code. And so after you get it all set up and changing orifice plates and so forth, you would want to do a volume reset, and this would also reset the accumulator. Okay, so this is really the bare essentials that you would have to do to get your G4 out of the box and up and running. And so this is initial tube setup, and so this concludes this portion of the tutorial.